everyone. My name is Liz Talbert, and I'm the Executive Director at the Alliance for Safe Kids. I'd like to welcome you to #Walk the Talk's second webinar Wednesday. Tonight's webinar is Look, Listen, and Link, empowering everyone to support mental health education, and will be presented by Melissa Smith and members of the North Salem High School Warriors Mental Health and Wellness Club, Alex DePauli and Sam Vilkalis. Melissa Smith has been a school counselor for over 22 years, both at the high school and middle school level. She's been trained in youth mental health first aid and is a public speaker on ADHD and family. She has a passion for empowering students to develop empathy and enhance their knowledge base, on mental health. Melissa is the advisor of the Warriors Mental Health and Wellness that has been running for over 6 years. And then we have Sam Vilkalis. Sam's a 10th grader who has been in the Warriors for 2 years. Sam has a passion for sharing her knowledge and personal experience on mental health. And then we also have Alex DePauli. Alex is a senior at North Salem High School, and since she was young, she had a passion for art and music. Mental health was a common theme in all of the art that she was exposed to, and those powerful messages resonated with her. Before I turn things over to them, I'd like to share a few housekeeping items with you. The webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you, along with the resources that the presenters have provided, and a quick survey that will help us on planning future presentations. The chat room that you see on the right side of your screen will be set to private once the presentation begins, and you may add any questions that you have there, and the presenters will answer them as they move along through the presentation. So I now have the pleasure of introducing Melissa Smith, Alex DePauli, and Sam Vilkalis.
So thank you everybody for being here. Sam, would you like to just talk a little bit about why you joined the Warriors?
Because my friend really wanted me to join the Warriors. And at the time, funny story, when I was in 8th grade, she really asked me to do it. And I was just like, this sounds so boring. Like, why do I want to spend my afternoons doing this when I could be at home eating my snacks? And so I was like, no. And then 9th grade came and she was like asking me again. And my mom wanted me to do it. And then I joined and I realized it was a lot more than I thought when we were doing this conference. And everyone was just really speaking up and everyone really seemed to care about it. And it just made a really big difference being in the club. So that's why I'm
For sure. Yes, thank you. So I am Alex. I am the co-president of the Warriors Club. I was their second member. I'm a senior at North Salem High School, and I've always been very passionate about mental health. And when our other co-president, Ellen, came to me and said that we were going to start a mental health and wellness club, I was like, this is perfect. I would love to be a part of this.
Sam, do you have anything else you want to offer?
I think that's it.
Okay. So hi, everybody. I'm Melissa Smith. I'm the advisor of the Warriors Club, as well as a school counselor at North Salem. And as Liz mentioned, about 6 or 7 years ago, I was working at Walter Panas High School, and one of my students, Gabby Singh, approached me about starting a mental health club. And it was really still taboo to talk about mental health and mental illness in schools. And there was still very little education and understanding. So through Gabby's advocacy and some of the other students at Panas, we wound up working with Michael Orth from the Westchester County Department of Health, and he thought it was a fantastic idea. So henceforth was the Warriors. So we're going to go through this presentation. It's called Look, Listen, and Link, and it is a fantastic curriculum out of Washington State. And I've looked at a lot of curriculums over the years, and I really like this. It's very simple, and it truly is what it says, Look, Listen, and Link. So Alex and Sam will share quite a bit of that with you. I just wanted to make a note that we have the 741-741 texting hotline on the cover of this presentation. If anyone is feeling uncomfortable during the show, please reach out to that texting hotline. It's a great resource. Okay.
Right, so who are the Warriors? Who are we and what do we do? The Warriors are a mental health and wellness club, and we are student run and we are run for students. We are for anybody who has been impacted by mental illness, anybody who's considering a career in helping professions in science and healthcare, medical field or teaching, those interested in advocacy and public speaking, those that see the value of brain health and wellness, and anybody who is also looking for community service. So it is really important to us that we have a lot of diversity within our club, and we have a lot of people from different backgrounds who are interested in different things, because it just makes our club so much stronger. Students in grades 8 to 12 are also welcome in our club, and those in grades 6 and 7 who aren't able to commit to a club can become what we call Friends of the Warriors. So they still work closely alongside us, even though they aren't able to officially call themselves members yet. So what do? We have done a lot in just the 3 years that we've been present in North Salem. So the first thing that we started off with, which we may get into a little bit of detail later, is our door project. And our door project was symbolic. It was about opening the door to mental health and the discussion of mental health. It was very important to raise awareness in our school. And excuse me, and we had many people, pretty much everybody in our school, actually physically sign a door that our tech teacher made. And when these people signed their names, it was basically saying that they took a vow to speak about the importance of mental health and continue to raise awareness within the community. There are many bulletin boards around our school that we realized weren't being used, so we were able to get those for Warriors. We were able to paint over them. We put some flyers on them. It's a great way for us to raise awareness about our club. We also put some lifeline magnets in classrooms, especially in our middle school. So on our little magnets, there are crisis hotlines like the one Mrs. Smith mentioned, 741-741. There's also the National Suicide Prevention Hotline on those magnets. And the idea is that students are going to be taking these magnets home and putting them on the fridge so that they're easily accessible by anyone who needs it, maybe giving them to a friend who may be in need. We also have our Warrior Wellness Wednesday PSA. So over our loudspeaker every Wednesday at homeroom, we have a warrior share a fact or ask a question that pertains to mental health. And it's another way that we're just spreading awareness within our community. So it's great for mental health awareness and also awareness of our club. So Look, Listen, Link is what we are going to be teaching to you guys later today in this presentation. It is a suicide prevention program. And it's great because it's so simple and we're able to teach it to other students. And as Mrs. Smith likes to say, the students are the front line. So if anybody is experiencing a mental health crisis at school, typically students, we being their friends and their peers are always the first people to recognize that. And hence why we're teaching Look, Listen, Link to other students. Our gratitude trees are probably the first activity that we did as a club. And we made cute little Christmas trees around December. We decorated them with little pom-poms and tinsel, and they were very cute. We clipped onto them little messages of appreciation that said, hey, we appreciate the work that we do. Thank you for doing this. And we ran around to our school and we handed out the trees to staff members. So we were just basically saying that we appreciate the work that's done because we know often it goes unnoticed. We've done a ton of presentations at faculty meetings, community groups. We have just done so much public speaking, and we're very thankful for the opportunities that we've been presented. A few years ago, we even were invited to New York State's Suicide Prevention Conference in Albany. So we got to take a trip there. That was so cool, so cool. We're very grateful for that. And we're also working to address issues as they evolve. So mental health is an ever-changing thing. And for example, with the COVID crisis recently, we've been trying to expand our resources and reach out to more kids than we typically do to make sure that everybody is feeling okay, feeling up to their best self. And over the summer with the murder of George Floyd, we worked with a group called Beam. And with them, we were trying to enhance the voices of Black and Brown students when it comes to mental health. So we've been working closely with them as well. So those are just some examples of ways that we have been addressing issues as they've been changing. So what do? What is the point of our club? Well, one great thing that we do is the Mental Health and Wellness Fair. That's probably our biggest event. It feels like all of our work sometimes in the year culminates to that event. And our Mental Health and Wellness Fair we've done twice. 2 years ago, it was in person. Last year, it was, or this year, earlier this year, last school year, it was virtual. So last year, we had over 40, I think the number was 40, different organizations that were local and some national, and they came to our high school. And we had sort of a career fair type event where all of the organizations that were there were sharing resources, websites, hotlines, things like that. And they were all just speaking about mental health. And there were all different facets of mental health there. We had some groups like NAMI that were there, which was great. And it was available to our middle school and high schoolers because our middle school and high school is the same building, and we allow all of our students to go to the mental health fair throughout the day. So that was just a really great event because a ton of kids, so many more than we ever thought, actually went out to that and were connected with it. And something that's also great about the Mental Health and Wellness Fair is the networking aspect of it, because I love artwork and I have a passion for mental health. And at the art fair was actually an art therapist. And I was able to speak to her, and I was just like, oh my gosh, you have my dream job. Like, this is so cool. And hopefully I will have the opportunity to intern with her at the end of the year, because I think that would just be great. So again, networking is just a great part of the Mental Health and Wellness Fair. Of course, we present with Ask. Thank you again for having us. We also realized the importance of social media when it comes to connecting with students. That's why we have an Instagram and a Twitter page. If you would like to follow us, our handle is @_NS Warriors. So with our world becoming increasingly digital, it's so important to take advantage of that resource. There was also the NAMI walk that some of our members have participated in. The National Alliance on Mental Illness hosts some charity walks. I know some of our students have definitely participated in that. It's a great way to exercise and to raise awareness as well. We have hosted guest speakers. We have been guest speakers on panels such as this. And there's just another way to raise awareness, which is great. We offer a ton of community service at the club, like so much. Almost everything that we do, we consider to be community service because mental health work betters the community in so many different ways. So for students that are looking for mental health, we often invite them to the club for, if no other reason, just to help out and to get some community service hours. And the main thing that we do is we provide a support network for all of the students within the club. I can't say how grateful I am to have met so many kids through the Warriors. Even though we're in a small school district, it's just made all the difference to be able to have that face-to-face contact with some people. And I've met so many friends through the Warriors, and it's just been incredible. Oh, I love this picture of me with my paint-stained knees. But this is an example of an art project that we did in our middle school. So something that's also great about the Warriors is that we've been including the work of people who have different passions that are just besides mental health. Like, for example, we've been working with some students that are in the National Art Honor Society, such as myself. And we work together to paint a mural that says, "Some students will be cooler, smarter, or more athletic than you, but it just doesn't matter. Be the kid who is kind, empathetic, and respectful." So again, we're just reinforcing those values, and it's great that we can include kids from many different areas of interests. And these two were examples of some student work that was also submitted for last year's mental health fair when it was virtual. I'm Not Okay, some very symbolic pieces that were done by the students because we weren't able to be there in person. And these are some examples of what we've done when we've been entering some middle school classrooms. So another important thing that we do with the Warriors is the fact that we are able to go into middle school classrooms and that we are students teaching students. That's really the big thing of the Warriors. It's great because students are more inclined to listen to their friends than they are to adults. That's just how it is. And for example, we have on the left, you see we asked some students what they think empathy is, what empathy means to them. We've taught lessons on empathy. And on the right, we were doing some educational lessons about different mental health disorders. You see obsessive compulsive disorder, bipolar disorder, depression. So we've been doing some education in that regard, and we just believe in the importance of educating students on topics like these while they're still young, while they're still learning and growing, because the most important part of this is that they're learning along with us. And one of the most impactful things that we've been teaching our 8th grade students is that their words matter. And this has been, sometimes people view this as maybe a little bit controversial, or maybe they've never even realized that what they've been saying can be hurtful to some people. But this is why we start this conversation, especially with our 8th graders. So, for example, we say things that are like obsessive compulsive disorder is not the same thing as being organized. So many people use that term OCD, just throwing it around. They're saying, oh, I prefer to have a clean room, I have OCD. Well, not really. And that can be hurtful to people who do struggle with obsessive compulsive disorder. Further, we have depression is not the same thing as having a bad day. So these mental health terms that are commonly misused, we try to correct kids in a way that's not putting them down. We're just trying to be educational and make everybody feel comfortable, whether it be the person who's sitting there and thinking to themselves, oh, well, I've said this before, maybe I should change my mind, or whether it be the person who has heard it and personally felt hurt by something that somebody has said. Mental health is part of our overall health. This is why mental health is so important to us. It affects how we feel, how we think, how we behave, how we cope with the ups and downs of everyday life. It's just so prevalent in our life. How we feel about ourselves in our life, how we see ourselves in our future. I definitely can remember when I was very young in middle school and I was a very, very shy kid. I didn't have very high self-esteem, and hence I didn't think very much of my future. I was thinking of only the present and, oh my gosh, how am I going to get out of this next English presentation and things like that. Mental health is very important when handling stress. Sorry, give me one moment, please. Very important to how we handle stress. And this is a really big part of why we work in schools, because students all the time are stressed. I know, especially the upperclassmen, juniors when they're thinking about college, seniors like myself, when we're applying to college, this is like pretty much the most stressful time of our entire year. And we want to be a group that kids know that they will always be supported from, they will always have support from, and they can like fall back on us, ask us questions, ask us for help or advice, anything like that. Mental health does affect how we deal with the negative things that happen in our life, and like I mentioned before, our self-esteem and our confidence. So everybody has mental health. Mental health cannot be like avoided by anybody or anything like that. And it's so prevalent in every aspect of our life. And this is why we're working so hard to raise awareness. Thank you.
Now we are going to test your knowledge. Just kidding, just kind of a joke. But I'm not kidding about this. 1 in 5 youth are impacted by a mental health condition. Then, Alex, you want to define yours first?
So stress, anxiety, and depression. I've heard a lot of those terms thrown around a lot, but we're here to kind of set the record straight. So stress is typically temporary. You can feel stressed for a long period of time, but you know that it is because typically of a certain event. and that you can take practical steps to relieve yourself of the stress. Anxiety disorders are not just necessarily feeling nervous. They're usually characterized by anxiety attacks, panic attacks, in which you may experience shortness of breath, rapid heart rate, sweating, feeling like your world is going to end. And typically, symptoms of anxiety result in avoidance behavior, which I know personally I struggle with issues of social anxiety. And a few years ago, when I was struggling the most, I would always deny going out with my friends because I was very nervous about how I was going to feel during the night, if I was going to have a panic attack in public and things like that. So that is characteristic of an anxiety disorder and not necessarily just feeling a little bit nervous. Depression is much more common than you think, and it is characterized by things such as feelings of sadness, feelings of guilt, being very tired, losing your regular sleep schedule, maybe losing your appetite. In more extreme cases, feelings of suicidal thoughts and ideations. And typically all these symptoms last, I believe the number is 2 weeks or more. But the importance about the main difference between anxiety, depression, and these typical feelings is that they are prolonged and they're usually extreme. But again, the Warriors are trying to educate about this because we're telling kids that, hey, it's much more common than you think, and that there are definitely ways around this, and to help yourself and to help others who may be struggling.
Touch briefly on our objectives that we're going to get into in much more detail as we go through Look, Listen, or Link. So along with what Alex just shared, we're going to talk about identifying some coping strategies and then share some great resources with you as well. So Alex and Sam, when you look at this picture, give me a caption. What is it saying?
It is saying to me that we are lifeguards in some sense. Sam, what do you see?
I see a brain. Gotta think.
Yes. The idea of Look, Listen, and Link is not to make anyone a therapist or a social worker or a school counselor. But as Alex mentioned, I love to say the students are the front line, which you are. If anyone denies that, it's so untrue. Who comes to you first? Your friends. You're on social media. You see things posted. You get texts late at night. You're FaceTiming in groups, and you hear things from your friends before they would tell any adult. So I look at you guys as the lifeguards of mental health and wellness. So we have to equip you with the skills and the knowledge on, what to look for, how to listen, and then how to link, connect your friends to help. The other thing I'd like to stress as we go through this training is that no student should ever be expected to take on someone else's mental health challenge. While we want you to be empathetic and caring and there for your friend and listen non-judgmentally, we do not expect you to take that stress on. Many of us that are in the club have a very giving nature, and we want to help, but you do have to learn, when you've reached your limit and when you need to really give a soft handover to someone else that can help. So I love this picture. Definitely feel free to use it. It's great. We used it with the 8th graders, and they came up with all sorts of creative captions. So it's also a nice little icebreaker. Alex.
Mental health, like I mentioned before, is something that we all have. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and influences our decision-making. So like I mentioned previously, this is part of the reason why we emphasize this so much within schools, because if you look, you say, oh, all students are handling stress, all students are relating to other students on a daily basis, all students are making decisions on a daily basis. These are all things that are very specific and prevalent in the lives of students, and this is why we're making such an emphasis on mental health within our community.
So as we go through this, you might say, wow, they already said this. We are going to repeat ourselves a lot because we only have a short time with you. And there's so much to cover that we decided to sort of consolidate look, listen, and link. And we're going to repeat a lot of the signs and the symptoms. So hopefully it'll stick with you. So a great question to really ask yourself is, why does stigma impact mental health? When we know 1 in 5 youth are impacted by a mental health challenge, and many have an onset of a mental illness prior to the age of 15, and the sad fact that it often takes up to 10 years from onset of a mental illness for someone to seek treatment, well, that's all related to stigma. If you had asthma or diabetes, you would go to the doctor and get treatment. Your friends would even be worried about you and care and say, you know, what's the matter? What can I do? Or if you break your arm, they want to sign your cast. But if you're struggling with an eating disorder or depression or anxiety, first off, you might not tell anybody. And secondly, if you tell someone, they might tell you, oh, get over it, it's a phase, or stop trying to get attention. That's all she wants, is to get attention. So we all come into the mindset of mental illness and mental health with some sort of stigma. So I want you just to think about that, and think about the first time you were exposed to someone with mental illness. The media does a horrible job with portraying people who are diagnosed with mental illness as crazy and violent and dangerous. And really, historically, we used to lock people up who had mental illness. So we've come a really long way, and I want you to remember that there is such a spectrum of mental illness. Again, if you think about 1 in 5, we all know somebody who is struggling, but still can maybe go through their day. And there's so much hope, and there's so much treatment available. Please keep that in the forefront too as we go through these. Anything else about stress you want to add, Alex?
Like I mentioned before, stress is just so prevalent in our everyday lives, especially as kids. And I feel like sometimes when I'm speaking to my friends, having conversations about stress, they'll say things like, "Oh, I didn't realize that this, for example, the college search process was going to be so stressful. I thought that my older brother or my older sister went through all this and they seemed so cool about it." So then sometimes for students, it becomes stressful that you're actually feeling stress. And it becomes a cycle of nervousness and stress and just feeling overworked all the time. So again, the students are the front line. Educating ourselves and our peers about stress, how to handle stress, is just really important to helping ourselves and others.
Video clip that was made by Gabby Pelosi, one of our warriors. As Alex mentioned,
hi everyone.
We had to have a virtual mental health and wellness fair, so we figured we'd throw Gabby in here. So listen to her.
We're all doing well. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the 5 things that you should know about stress. Understanding stress is an integral part of managing your own mental health. But what exactly is stress, and how does it affect your overall health? Number 1, stress affects everyone. Every person experiences stress from time to time. There are different types of stress, all of which carry physical and mental health risks. Some examples of stress include routine stress related to the pressures of school, work, family, and other daily responsibilities. Stress brought on by sudden negative change, such as losing a job, divorce, or illness, and traumatic stress. Number 2, not all stress is bad. In a dangerous situation, stress signals the body to prepare to face a threat or flee to safety. In non-life-threatening situations, stress can motivate people, such as when they need to take a test or interview for a job. Number 3, long-term stress can harm your overall health. Coping with chronic stress can be very challenging. Some people experience headaches, trouble sleeping, sadness, anger, or irritability. With chronic stress, your immune, digestive, cardiovascular, sleep, and reproductive systems are all impacted. Over time, continued strain on your body from stress may contribute to serious health problems such as heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and other illnesses, including mental health disorders such as depression. Number 4, there are ways to manage your stress. Some of these tactics include being observant, which means recognizing your body's response to stress, such as difficulty sleeping, being easily angered, feeling depressed, and having low energy. Getting regular exercise, which can help boost your mood and improve your health. For example, this could be just 30 minutes of walking every day. You could also try a relaxing activity such as meditation or breathing exercises. In addition, setting goals and priorities are helpful as well. And staying connected with others is a great way to continue managing your stress because you are not alone. There are always people willing to help you feel better and less stressed. And finally, number 5. If you feel overwhelmed by stress, ask for help from a health professional. You should seek help right away if you have suicidal thoughts, are overwhelmed, feel you cannot cope, or are using drugs or alcohol more frequently as a result of stress. I hope everyone found this helpful and learned just a little bit more about understanding the stress in our lives and how we can manage it. Thanks so much for listening.
The Warriors, since we started at North Salem. And that's just an example of what Warriors can do as far as being members in the club. Sam, would you like to talk about anxiety?
Reaction to stressful, dangerous, or unfamiliar situations. It's sense of uneasiness, distress, or dread you feel before a significant event. Symptoms are feeling nervous, restless, or tense, having a sense of impending of danger, panic, or doom, having increased heart rate, breathing rapidly, sweating, trembling, feeling weak or tired, trouble concentrating or thinking about anything other than present worry. Now, we all feel these feelings sometimes, but if you start feeling these feelings more than like 2 weeks in a row, then it might be time to talk to somebody about it.
I think you did just address it. I've never really heard of panic disorder before. What are the differences between it and anxiety disorder? I'll say a few words and then if you two want to jump in. So it's important to know with panic disorder, its onset is quick. It usually peaks by 10 minutes. People often feel like they're having a heart attack. They sweat. They might get red. They might feel like they're going to die. And be just really afraid. We have many students in school that have panic attacks, and we use cold ice because if you put ice on your face, it'll snap your central nervous system out of sort of that state. Cognitive type, brain type thinking games are also very helpful, where maybe you'd look around the room for everything that's blue, everything that's orange. I've, in my previous school, had a student come and do push-ups, some sort of physical activity, which she was having instead of a panic disorder. But panic disorder falls under anxiety disorder, and there's many different types of anxiety disorders. Anything else we want to add?
I think you covered it.
Okay, and then the other question, hi, I was wondering what's the right way to balance between being empathetic and caring towards someone struggling with mental health and not letting it become your mental state. Alex, you want to take that one?
Sure, that's actually a really good question because in the first few years of the Warriors, I was myself trying to answer this question because I'm naturally just a very empathetic person, and I was trying to help some friends who were going through some tough times, and I kind of let it consume my own life. So part of the main response to this question, I think, is just realizing that you and your friend are two different people, and even though you love them and you want to give them all the support you can, you also have to take care of yourself and realize your own self-worth and make sure that you are helping your friend but also helping yourself by, if the situation calls for it, maybe distancing yourself a little bit, or speaking to your friend more, engaging with them more, just remembering that you are on their side, but sometimes you need to take care of your own mental health too.
Back to that saying that I remember learning in Psychology 101 in college, that when you're on an airplane, if there's problems and the masks drop and you have a small child, you put your mask on first because you're not good to anyone unless you take care of yourself first, and then you help your small child. So self-care is really important, everyone. And Alex mentioned before COVID has multiplied people's level of anxiety and depression and social isolation. Students who you never would have imagined are struggling. And that goes back to sort of brain. We all have brains and our brains can get sick. So you guys are asking great questions. Keep asking. We do appreciate them. Real quick, self-harm. Self-harm is really the intentional act of hurting oneself. People can self-injure by cutting, by burning, by picking, at their skin, excessive scratching. Real excessive acts might be intentionally breaking bones or hitting oneself. And it's not an attempt to die by suicide, but what can happen is you put yourself at risk. You might do something that is so impulsive that could be really dangerous. When you talk to someone who self-injures, they'll often tell you one of two things. Either they're not able to feel, they're not able to express their emotions, and by hurting themselves physically, it allows them to actually feel. It's almost a sense of euphoria that comes over them. Also, sometimes people will self-injure because they have such pent-up anger and frustration, and they just don't know what to do with it. It really comes back to possible trauma at an early age or post-traumatic stress syndrome, and people use it as a coping skill. So you might see people who have rubber bands around their wrists or draw on themselves. That is often a technique that therapists would recommend to use to help avoid the impulse of self-injuring. There's treatment out there for sure. It's hard because people who self-injure usually will conceal it. They'll wear long sleeve shirts when it's hot out, won't change for phys ed class. Sometimes I've seen people who used to self-injure on their arms and the parents found out and they'll move to their thighs. So again, just being a supportive friend, allowing someone to talk to you and to share what's going on is a really helpful thing. Okay, so now we're going to get into the actual look, listen, and link. And like I said, we covered a lot of this, but let's think real practically, right? We have a friend, we know our friend, we know sort of their behaviors, we know how they dress and what they do on the weekends, and we even might know about their grades and how much they care about school. All of a sudden, that friend doesn't want to hang out anymore, isn't on Instagram, doesn't text you back right away, doesn't want to eat much. They tell you they can't sleep. Their hygiene doesn't look that great. They might not be doing their hair, or if they wore makeup, might not be wearing makeup. They're grumpy. They're short with you. They're irritable. There's definitely a change in personality as you know them. Now, everything I just said could definitely happen to any of us, and it does happen to us. I get in bad moods. There's days I don't feel like eating. There's days I just want to lay on the couch. But Alex mentioned, if these symptoms last for 2 weeks or longer, that's put someone really at risk. And that's what a psychiatrist would look for as far as diagnosing them with depression. So let me go to the next slide. And I'm just going to read through these. Like I said, we've said them, but I want them to sink in. So feeling irritable, having anger or hostility, frequent crying. Some people are more sensitive. I'm one who cries. If an animal gets hurt, I'm going to cry. But if I'm crying all the time and I can't control it, then that might be a red flag. Withdrawing from family and friends. Now, I always tell parents, there's typical behaviors that happen as you guys age and get older. You might not want to go on family vacations anymore, but you're still doing things. Maybe you want to go away with your friends. That's really not anything to worry about. That's sort of a developmental thing that's okay. Loss of interest in activities, poor school performance, changes in eating and sleeping, feeling worthless. That's important. Sometimes people will say, I'm just so stupid. Life would be better if I wasn't here. I'm a burden to my family. People often have fatigue and lack of energy, and sometimes physical symptoms, okay? Headaches, aches and pains, and thoughts of suicide. So listen, Alex or Sam, you want to do that a little bit? Remember we talked about Sam, you did that great video with your dad. What a good listener looks like.
Yeah, so listening is the part where you really have to like listen to somebody, right? That's the part where you are listening to people. Like if somebody is telling you concern, just really listen. If somebody's having mental health problems or they want to talk to you, don't shut them down. Don't bring up maybe your problem. Like just really be there for them and really listen to them and make it about them and not about you. And just offer an ear.
And that's so important because so many young people will tell me that even though their friends love them and care about them, they often, when they get the courage to share with them that they're having a hard time, their friend might start talking about themselves. And that's often because either they're uncomfortable or don't know what to say, or some people are very sort of absorbed in their own life and in their own way. But don't give up. Keep trying to find a friend who will actively listen and be not judgmental. And it's important that you know that you can say to somebody, you know, wow, thanks for sharing. I don't even know what to say to you. You know, I want to give everyone here the permission to say that you can say, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do for you. And when we get to the link, that's where that comes in. But just to listen, as Sam said, with the non-judgmental ear is really, really powerful. And practice it, try it. You know, listening is one of those soft skills that are really important to be productive in the work world. And many people are not good at listening. We're often thinking about what we're going to say next. You know, when someone says something and we're not really hearing them, we're not really being with them in the moment. We might be, you know, picking up our phones, which is really bad. It's awful. I hate when people are like texting when I'm trying to talk to them. So be aware of yourself and how well you really do listen to somebody.
Only one person listened to me, and it just really breaks your heart. But it makes you want to be that one person that somebody can always fall back on if they're having any issues. And so the last part of look, listen, link is the link, which is connecting your friend or whoever's come to you with the resources and the professionals who are able to help them. Because you, especially if somebody is struggling with what you believe to be a significant mental health disorder, you don't want to try to handle it all yourself. That's just going to lead to feelings of ineptitude, and you're going to be very, very upset. You're going to feel overwhelmed. So you're trying to connect these people with a professional. So for example, we have at the beginning of our slides, we have the 741-741 texting hotline. That's great because I know some people maybe in times of crisis won't want to speak, but instead would rather text. That's a great hotline. You have the National Suicide Hotline, which I believe is 1-800-273-8255. You can find all these numbers by going online, but we have them in our presentation too. And we've gotten a great question that says, what if you feel depressed for about a week, but it happens every month? Would that be something to look into in regards to symptoms lasting 2 weeks? So Mrs. Smith, please feel free to add on to what I'm going to say. But from my perspective, I believe that if you're feeling many symptoms of depression routinely, it would definitely be something to look into. You'd rather be safe than sorry.
And, you know, for women also, their menstrual cycle often affects hormones as well. So that's something to look into. Oftentimes there's a feeling of sadness or depression. So I would definitely speak to a doctor for sure. Good questions. Please keep them coming. Oh, so Alex, you want to just tell them what the Trevor Lifeline is about?
Oh, yes. So the Trevor Lifeline is a suicide prevention hotline specifically for LGBT plus youth. So you know that if you identify as LGBT plus, you can connect with the Trevor Lifeline and they will give you specific support. There's also some other specific helplines on here. dating abuse, which is very important. And we asked, sorry, Sam, I don't mean to steal your slide, but just one more thing. We asked that you put all these numbers in your phone. Even if you don't think you'll ever use them, you might need to send them to somebody really quickly. And they're just great to have on hand.
Project. And I look at this really as the hope slide. We went over some, some heavy things today and talked about depression and anxiety and self-injury and suicide, and as you as a friend, what you can do to help. So it's important that when we talk about something that's difficult to talk about, we think of a way to approach it in which people can hear us. So the Warriors are really careful and sensitive to those that really don't believe in mental health or minimize it or even are afraid of it, because it is scary. There's no blood test. And I think that adds to the stigma and adds to the fear, because it's an assessment and behaviors and those things are looked at by a psychiatrist versus going in and having a blood test, which really confirms that you have cancer or a certain illness. So we figured, we wanted to find something that was not so threatening, that would really motivate people. And we found this video, which is great. And I think we're going to have you watch it on your own. It's a short video. It's about a young man who lives in Canada. He's probably in his 20s now. And his dad died, and he got really depressed, and kids were being really cruel to him, because we know sometimes, right? Kids are cruel to each other. Mom didn't know what to do, so she moved him to a bigger city school. When Josh got there, he felt like he didn't want to be invisible. And that always breaks my heart every time I watch this when I hear him say that, because no student should ever feel invisible. And he decided to hold the door open. And through holding the door open, he made a lot of great connections. I'm not going to tell you anymore because I want you to watch it. But if you look at the bottom of the screen here, Alex mentioned earlier, we have a door. We took the idea from Josh, and we decided that we'd show the video to everyone in the building. Everyone watched it during homeroom. And then we asked the students to come and sign the door if they would support opening doors for hope and addressing stigma as it's related to mental health. And Alex, do you want to tell them what happened?
Which was really incredible. And we were bringing the door all around our school. We brought it to our different presentations. It's just a great conversation starter. And we were just so grateful that so many people took it really seriously, and that we heard conversation about it in the hallways the next day. We've seen names of so many kids that we know and that we don't know all over the door. And we're just very grateful that people have been connecting with it in the way that we hoped they would be.
Okay, so we have another question. Julia asked, can you talk about some symptoms of social anxiety? I've heard about this before, but don't really know what would indicate it. So maybe Sam, both you and Alice can touch on it, and then I'll add a few words.
Sure. Sam, would you like to speak a little bit about it first? Okay, no worries. I'm going to speak a little bit from personal experience. So for me, social anxiety was things like avoiding social situations, even with people that I really liked and really trusted. All of my friends would be like, hey, let's go to the mall on Friday. And I'm just like, I don't really want to do that. For me, it was thinking that everybody was staring at me. Everybody was judging me. I was afraid I was going to be humiliated when I go into a store to do something simple like buy a shirt or things like that. And then if I did agree to go out, I would go home the same day and I would evaluate everything that I did, every little thing that I did, and just sit there and think to myself, oh my gosh, I looked so dumb. Or I'm sure that cashier was going to talk about me at the dinner table tomorrow because I just did something so embarrassing. And it really made me not want to go out and be social for a while. So there are definitely other symptoms, but personally for me, that was what I struggled with for a while.
And One thing that's really important is that anxiety loves avoidance. Anxiety gets stronger and more powerful when we avoid that very thing that makes us anxious. So if any of you have younger siblings, or maybe even you yourself had a hard time going to school, and now we call this school avoidance, that students just have such tremendous fear to walk into the building and to go to school. It's so debilitating. But the more you avoid school and the more you avoid coming, the more difficult that it gets. You know, if you have a fear of an elevator, the more you avoid that elevator, the harder and harder it's going to get. And the avoidance definitely makes you feel good in the moment because you're not going to go through that initial anxiety. But in the long term, it can really complicate your life and be very difficult. So there's a lot of great therapies that can help with that. And that's something I wanted to mention too, and you guys feel free to jump in. Seeing a therapist is an amazing, great thing. It's taking care of your brain. So sometimes parents use it as like a punishment, or, you know, I'm going to send you away, I'm going to send you to see somebody, but it really shouldn't be. It's really something that's very positive, and you want to find the right therapist that you feel comfortable with, and it's your opportunity to really share how you feel and your deepest thoughts and get feedback in a very non-judgmental, supportive way. There are two therapies I do want to point out to you. One is called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and the other one is called DBT, dialectic behavioral therapy. And we have a class called Freshman Seminar, and we actually teach some of those skills. Sam did a great project on that in Freshman Seminar. Do you want to talk about that, Sam?
Because I can't really remember that well. I'm not gonna lie, just being honest.
That's okay. I think
we did different tables, and we had different like activities where kids could do different calming ways to really just like calm down. It was kind of more of like we had like sensory tables, and we had just different ways to really like calm down. So if you were like having a bad mood or having a bad day, you could come to like a table and you could touch different things that might feel good to you, or you could like smell a good scent or eat something yummy.
Absolutely, that was it. So if anyone on here that's listening has social anxiety or any sort of anxiety, you know, and you're thinking of going to a therapist, look for someone who specializes in CBT or DBT. And I believe the Mahopac Women's Center is going to be starting groups for teenagers using DBT. So that's another good resource. Let's see, I've heard that some mental health issues are correlated, like can one issue lead to another? Is this true? Anyone want to?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump into that. I am not sure in particular if one issue directly leads to another, but I know that there are certainly some mental illnesses that tend to coexist. Like, for example, anxiety and depression. What will happen sometimes is that somebody becomes very anxious, and it leads to feelings of hopelessness and many other symptoms that correlate with depression too. And they can kind of work together to really hurt someone. We have we have another question above that I would like to pass on to Mrs. Smith. They're asking, what are some coping methods for OCD?
Okay, sorry, I missed that one. You should probably see a therapist. They use a lot of different strategies, and since I don't know exactly what the OCD is, it's hard to.
So
What's that?
I said I could share a little bit on some coping strategies on that if you'd like. Well, for me, my therapist for OCD, she wanted for me, if you have like intrusive thoughts, for me, what I do is that sometimes thinking about the thoughts are just like really scary and upsetting. And they just, to make it go away, well, to help it, to try to get it to go away, is just saying the thought out loud in therapy. And for me, that was a little awkward. I didn't really want to do that. So I videotaped myself doing it. And I did it like almost every day or every other day or something, and then I would send it to her, and then they kind of started to slowly like go away over time. And for me, I feel like after doing the therapy and like some of the activities, it kind of, some of the stuff slowly goes away on its own, kind of like, I don't know if it really makes sense, but it kind of did for me. And then some other things that I did was just writing down, like, if I had like what was going on that day, like, if if I had like obsessive thoughts or what impulse, like that always really helped me too. So
Yeah,
you're
that's
welcome.
exposure therapy is often used, where you really expose yourself to the compulsion, refocusing your energy, doing something physical is often helpful. I know people have kept journals too, and really sort of embracing it. And really with all mental health issues, guys, educating yourself. I'll use ADHD. I know so many students with ADHD, and they really don't understand it. And often when we don't understand something, we make it worse than what it really is, and scarier than what it really is. So starting off with educating yourself, go to a legit site. There's a site called Teen Mental Health, which I really like. CDC, Centers for Disease Control, and Child Mind Institute is another great website. They have short videos on there. But just be careful on the internet, because there is a lot of misinformation. But those sites I mentioned are pretty good.
Yeah, so I'm going to go on to the next question, if that's okay. Sam, if you want to add anything.
I'll just say that going to therapy can be scary at first, but for me, I was like really nervous. And I've been to therapy before, my OCD therapy, but it's just always really nervous meeting a new therapist and just trying, like, knowing if it'll work or what they're gonna think and stuff like that. But usually it works out pretty well, and they really help you, and they really want to help you. So you should really go if you're looking for one.
Yes, thank you, Sam. That's so
You're
helpful. So somebody asked, is it normal for my mental health issues to make me feel weak? And I can say definitely yes, it's definitely normal. A lot of mental health disorders manifest themselves in physical ways. Some of them after a day that may not even be particularly stressful. You may feel exhausted because sometimes you have, it sounds a little cheesy, but sometimes people refer to them as mind battles when your mind is battling itself. It's very exhausting, and sometimes it doesn't happen consciously. Sometimes you don't even realize it.
True. I know with Tourette's, which is a neurological disorder, students with Tourette's fight so hard to control their tics, they are exhausted by the end of the day. That also happens with ADHD as well, trying to control some of the hyperactivity or the movement, which is actually really a good thing because it helps the brain focus. So that's where that self-care comes in, and getting enough sleep and eating well and exercising. Are there more questions? I think.
All right. Yes, we have 2 more as of now. And please continue to ask questions if you have any. Somebody asked, what would you say to a student who wants to get help, but their parents don't really think that they need to go to therapy? Well, this is definitely an issue, and I've had personal experience with this. I have some people in my family who don't believe in mental health. And I think the most important response to this is education, in a way that doesn't belittle somebody, just giving them straight facts, maybe even telling them about the work that we do in the Warriors, inviting them to maybe listen in on a meeting or things like that. Because what we're trying to do is reduce the stigma that you're experiencing, the stigma being the belief around mental health that it's something that we shouldn't talk about, we should be ashamed of, things like that. So we're definitely trying to end that stigma, and I would definitely say education is a great way to do that.
Also, I mean, it's helpful that more celebrities and athletes and famous people are coming out about their mental health issue. I know sometimes culturally, families have a really hard time and they see mental illness as taboo or a weakness. I do suggest, you can start at your school. if you are a student, and seek out the school counselor, the psychologist. If you have a social worker or a student assistance counselor, they can also help advocate with you. Maybe have your parents come in and you could talk, with the support of that staff person to your parents and why you feel that it's important. You know what? Anyone that wants to go to therapy is being very proactive and wanting to take care of their brain. So as Alex said, it's really about a lot of education and, maybe find out what is your parents' hesitation. What is their fear? We know parents love us and want us to feel well and do well and want to fix things. And it's really scary for a parent when their child is struggling with a mental health issue, because it's usually out of what they can control and what they can manage. And they also sometimes feel some guilt because we know that sometimes there's a genetic role that mental illness plays in this as well. And we also have to do the flip side to your question. There's many students who live in a family where a parent is struggling with a mental illness. One year at my old district, I remember 5 seniors wrote their essays on their moms having bipolar disorder, and not one of them knew about each other, and they were in the same social circle. So it made me feel really sad that they could have used each other for support all through high school because they were friendly with one another, but it goes back to that stigma and that fear of disclosing.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. So somebody asked, what if you can't afford therapy and it isn't covered by insurance? So this is definitely a prevalent issue. So my personal advice would be, if you're in a school, go to a guidance counselor and speak to them, because they will offer you some resources and they will offer you one-on-one sessions that will be able for you, that you will be able to use rather, and they will be able to link you with other professionals who are able to provide help.
But they are very limited. So what we're finding really throughout the country is that schools need to become more equipped to pick up the mental health needs of the students, and just because of the questions that you've all been asking.
So somebody asked, is it normal for your mental health issues to feel worse or more overwhelming during certain times of the day? Now, I would say yes, it probably is normal. You might feel more stressed or more anxious going to maybe a certain class. I know some people struggle with test anxiety, which makes it really difficult for them to attend class. When you're coming home from school, for example, you're probably feeling very tired. You may be more susceptible to feelings that you might have repressed during the day. So I would probably say yes.
I just want to add one thing there. I agree with Alex. For me, sometimes if I was moody or just like didn't get enough sleep or didn't get enough food, sometimes my mental health would come out more, or I'd feel more anxious or certain things. So it can definitely depend what's going on that day. If there was an anxious event that I was just normally anxious about, then it would definitely be worse for me. So it's definitely normal.
Is there an opportunity for online therapy or support groups? Yes, there definitely are. I'm not sure of any off the top of my head. Mrs. Smith or Sam might be able to help with that, but there definitely are some free resources online where you can connect with a mental health professional. And for some, that's a great way, whether you aren't able to afford therapy, aren't able to physically go to therapy, things like that, finding an online professional and making sure that they are a professional, researching credentials and things like that. That's a very great alternative to face-to-face therapy.
And feel free, my email is on here, so feel free to email me. I can't think off the top of my head exactly websites or whatnot, but I can definitely give you some resources. So keep asking your questions. I'm just going to mention this slide. So Marla Baylor and Megan Castellano are 2 wonderful social workers who work in Putnam County, who helped us create the Warriors curriculum and put it together. Their information is on there. I hope everyone on here, if you're students, will go back to their school districts and say, we want to start a Warriors Club. The curriculum request form is here, so all you need to do is fill it out. I know Brewster Central School District got approval, and they're going to be starting a Warriors Club. And we just love to network and see other schools sort of pick up on this opportunity to just start talking about mental health and wellness, to address stigma. And, I am so fortunate and so lucky that I've been able to meet all of these students. Alex and Sam are amazing. And Ellen, who's also co-president, is amazing. And all of the members of our club. I think, Alex, right, we're up to 40 something on our Google Classroom from Ellen, one and only person coming to the first meeting. So it's amazing. And, we do advertise community service, and people will come under that umbrella, but then all of a sudden they get roped in and really believe in the cause. So it's really nice to see that. Okay. Any other questions?
We'll give a minute for you guys to type some questions if you have any. Oh, and follow our social media. We have an Instagram and Twitter, same handle, @_NSWarriors. You can see what we're up to.
And just make a connection. There's research that really supports that connecting with one trusted adult can change the course of someone's life. So bring your friend to someone, find someone to help you or your friends, and just be kind. You never, ever, ever really know what someone's struggling with. They could be your best friend, and you might not know that they're struggling with something at home or a mental health issue. And there's a lot of hope. The more we talk about this and the more education we get out, the more the doors will open for people to get help and address, their challenges and lead a very productive, happy, healthy life. Just remember, get your sleep, eat well, exercise, use your pets for support. Music is wonderful, journaling, mindfulness. I have a hard time with that myself because I'm more active. It's hard to sort of meditate and be in my own brain, but find what works for you. All right.
And if you have any questions that you don't feel comfortable asking now, please reach out to us on our social media or our emails.
And we just want to thank Alliance for Safe Kids for having us tonight. This was an amazing opportunity. So Liz, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. We appreciate this.
I can thank you all enough. So a hearty thanks to you, Melissa, Alex, and Sam, because you provided us with such great information and resources. And I was jotting down a few things during your presentation. I love that I love the concept of students being on the front line, because that really is so very true. It's that different teenagers do go to their friends before an adult, and then as the friend, you may become burdened with this information. So to know that there are resources that you can go to, and can find some direction is so important. It truly is, and it just brings me back to Save a Life, which unfortunately we couldn't have this year, but the whole concept of Save a Life was about empowering students and families with information so that we could take better care of one another. And I know that we were so grateful to have had the Warriors at many of our previous Save a Lives. And when you talked about the door, I just remember the first time you showed up with this door that and it was so powerful, and it really caused the students and the adults that were there to stop and take a moment and really think about what these messages meant on the door and what it can mean to someone else. So I could just go on and on. I love what you do. I love this club. I think that Warriors, you represent your group so well, and your peers so very well. So thank you. So just a reminder to everyone that they will be getting the recording of the webinar probably in about an hour. So, remember, you can go right to the end if you want to get that contact information if you have any questions for Melissa or the girls. And also in that email, there will be a registration link to #WalkTheTalk. So if you haven't already done so, please consider registering, create a team, have fun with it, plan on walking safely within the community, and wherever you would like to walk. But I would also invite you, this Saturday, we have another pop-up walk scheduled from 10:30 to 12:30 at Granite Knolls Park, which is huge. And so we can all be socially distant and be out there walking together and supporting the Alliance for Safe Kids. So again, thank you so much to Melissa and the Warriors. And I thank you all for taking the time to watch this very important presentation. And I wish you all good health and a good night. Thank you.